In 1950, China's military carried rifles copied from the Soviet Union, flew aircraft copied from the Soviet Union, and drove tanks copied from the Soviet Union. Today, China operates stealth fighters, hypersonic glide vehicles, and the world's most advanced carrier catapult system, all domestically designed. This is not a story about weapons. It is a story about what 70 years of industrial obsession looks like when it succeeds. Era 1, the Soviet Shadow, 1949 to 1960. Type 54, pistol China's first standard military pistol, was a direct copy of the Soviet TT-33 Tokarev. Chinese factories received Soviet tooling, Soviet advisors, and Soviet specifications. The result was mechanically identical to the original. 7.62 millimeters, 8-round magazine, simple and reliable. It remained in service for over 6 decades. The Type 54 is not a story about a pistol. It is the baseline against which everything that followed must be measured. Zero indigenous capability. Total dependency on a foreign patron. Type 56, assault rifle. When the Soviet Union provided China with AK-47 manufacturing licenses in the mid-1950s, Chinese factories produced what would become the most widely distributed Kalashnikov variant in history. The Type 56 added one Chinese modification, a permanently attached folding spike bayonet. China exported it to dozens of countries and armed everyone from the Viet Cong to Afghan Mujahideen. Millions remain in use worldwide. China's first contribution to global military technology was a weapon it didn't design, but distributed at a scale the Soviet Union never matched. J-5, China's first jet fighter, was a licensed copy of the Soviet MiG-17. Chinese pilots flew it over the Taiwan Strait in the late 1950s. The J-5 itself was obsolete almost immediately. What it transferred was not the knowledge, infrastructure, and trained workforce to operate and maintain jet combat aircraft at scale. When Soviet assistance was withdrawn entirely after 1960, China had a foundation. Without the J-5, it would have had nothing. Type 59, Tank A direct copy of the Soviet T-54, the Type 59 entered service in 1959. China built over 10,000, more than any country produced of any single tank model in the Cold War era outside the T-54/55 family itself. Its armor was inadequate, its fire control primitive, its crew conditions poor. But it gave China an armored force and, crucially, the industrial infrastructure to build tanks. Infrastructure that would be refined through every subsequent generation. Era 2, standing alone, 1960 to 1980. DF-2, ballistic missile. When the Sino-Soviet split of 1960 ended all technical cooperation, China had nuclear ambitions and no delivery system. The DF-2, developed through the 1960s with knowledge absorbed before the Soviet advisors left, was China's first operational medium-range ballistic missile. Range, 1,250 kilometers, enough to strike US bases in Japan. It was crude and liquid-fueled, but it existed. China had built a nuclear delivery system entirely through its own effort, and the message to both Washington and Moscow was unambiguous. Type 69, tank China's first attempt to improve on its Soviet inheritance. Engineers examined a T-62 captured during the 1969 Ussuri River border conflict and incorporated lessons into a modified Type 59 hull. The result was not competitive with contemporary Western or Soviet designs, but it was the first time Chinese engineers had modified a design rather than simply copied one, a small step that mattered more than its operational performance suggested. J-8, China's first attempt at an entirely domestic fighter design. Development was crippled by the Cultural Revolution's deliberate destruction of the educated class, so delayed by political chaos that it didn't enter service until 1980, already a generation behind Western designs. But it proved something essential. China could design a supersonic combat aircraft from scratch. That capability would compound dramatically in the decades ahead. Luda-class destroyer, China's first domestically designed surface combatant, entering service in 1971. Its sensors were outdated from the moment it launched. Its range was limited. But building a destroyer is categorically different from building a rifle. The Luda program created the industrial and engineering base for naval construction that China would refine through every subsequent warship class for the next 50 years. Era 3, the Modernization Window, 1980 to 2000. J-10 China set its engineers a target: build a fourth-generation fighter competitive with the F-16. The J-10 that emerged after over a decade of development was a canard delta design with fly-by-wire controls, modern radar, and precision-guided munition capability. It entered service in 2003. The gap between the J-5, a Soviet copy from 1956, and the J-10 represents the single largest qualitative leap in any nation's combat aviation history in the post-war era. China had gone from licensed reproduction to peer-level design in 47 years. Type 96 tanked China's first main battle tank that could be described as a legitimate competitor to Cold War-era Western designs. Composite armor, 125mm smoothbore gun with autoloader, thermal imaging. Over 2,500 built. It was not the equal of a contemporary M1A2, but the gap had closed from a chasm to a meaningful comparison, and it gave China the mass armored force it needed while more advanced designs were developed. DF-21D, an anti-ship ballistic missile with a maneuvering re-entry vehicle designed to strike moving aircraft carriers at ranges exceeding 1,500 kilometers. No existing naval defense system had been designed to solve this targeting problem. American naval planners spent years reconfiguring doctrine around the DF-21D threat. A missile that changed how the world's dominant naval power deployed its fleet, without ever being fired in combat, represents strategic achievement that transcends specifications. Song-class submarine, China's first genuinely modern diesel-electric submarine. In 2006, a Song-class surfaced undetected within torpedo range of the USS Kitty Hawk carrier strike group in the Pacific. The incident was not publicized by either government. The strategic message was received regardless. Chinese submarine capability had reached a level capable of threatening American naval operations, a threshold that changed every US Pacific deployment calculation. HQ-9, China's first long-range air defense system, capable of engaging targets at 200 kilometers. Its development drew on Russian S-300 technology and, reportedly, examination of a Patriot missile obtained through unofficial channels. Turkey evaluated it seriously for national purchase before US pressure ended the contract. An air defense system that Western governments lobbied actively to prevent from spreading is one those governments considered genuinely capable. Era 4, the strategic challenge, 2000 to 2015. J-20, China's first fifth-generation stealth fighter, flew in January 2011. On the same day, US Defense Secretary Robert Gates was visiting Beijing. A deliberate act of strategic signaling. The J-20 features internal weapons bays, low observable shaping, and advanced avionics optimized for striking high-value targets deep behind enemy lines. The United States had assumed China was a decade away from operational stealth. The J-20 demonstrated that assessment was wrong by approximately 10 years. Type 05-2D destroyer, China's first destroyer, with a universal vertical launch system capable of firing the full range of PLA Navy missiles, anti-ship, land attack, anti-submarine, and air defense from a single cell. Often described as China's Arleigh Burke equivalent. China has built over 25 Type 05-2D destroyers, more than the United States built of its equivalent class in the same period. The naval balance in the Indo-Pacific is measured in hulls, and China is building them faster. DF-41, China's most capable ICBM carries between 6 and 10 independently targetable nuclear warheads to a range exceeding 14,000 kilometers, sufficient to strike any point in the continental United States from road-mobile launchers that cannot be pre-targeted. Combined with hundreds of new ICBM silos under construction since 2021, the DF-41 represents the transformation of China's nuclear posture from minimum deterrence to something approaching genuine strategic parity. Type 99. China's third-generation main battle tank. Composite and reactive armor, 125mm gun-firing laser-guided projectiles, active protection system, hunter-killer fire control. Independent assessments place it as broadly competitive with the best Western tanks currently in service. From the Type 59 in 1959 to the Type 99A took 55 years. The end point of that journey is a tank that no army on Earth would dismiss. CV-16 led lioning China's first aircraft carrier, a Soviet-era hull purchased from Ukraine in 1998 as an amusement park, a fiction that fooled nobody. Commissioned in 2012, it gave China its first experience of carrier aviation, landing aircraft on a moving deck, coordinating strike packages, managing the logistics of sustaining air operations at sea. The Liaoning was never intended to be a combat carrier. It was a school, and what China learned was applied directly to everything that followed. Era 5, the Superpower, 2015 to 2026. DF-17. China's hypersonic glide vehicle launches on a ballistic trajectory, then deploys a glide vehicle that maneuvers in the upper atmosphere at speeds exceeding Mach 5, combining the speed of a ballistic missile with the maneuverability of a cruise missile. No currently deployed air defense system can reliably intercept it. The DF-17 is not China's most powerful weapon. It is China's clearest statement that the defensive advantage held by US carrier groups is narrowing faster than American procurement can respond. Type 003, Fujian commissioned in 2024. The Fujian is the first carrier outside the United States equipped with an electromagnetic aircraft launch system, the same technology as the USS Gerald R. Ford. China went from a second-hand ski jump carrier in 1998 to a domestically built EMALS carrier in 26 years. The United States took 70 years to develop the same technology. The Fujian is proof of an industrial capacity. The world had not anticipated China possessing this quickly. J-35, China's second fifth-generation stealth fighter, designed from the outset for carrier operations. Folding wings, reinforced undercarriage, internal weapons bays. The J-35 gives the Fujian a stealth strike capability no other navy outside the United States currently possesses. The combination of an EMALS carrier and a stealth carrier-based fighter represents a strike group capability assessed as a decade away as recently as 2015. WZ-8, a rocket-powered hypersonic reconnaissance drone carried and air-launched from an H-6 bomber. It flies at Mach 4 at extreme altitude, surveilling targets no conventional aircraft can reach and no air defense can intercept. Revealed at the 2019 National Day Parade alongside the DF-17. Together they form a complete targeting system. The WZ-8 finds the carrier group. The DF-17 strikes it before a response is possible. China has not built weapons in isolation. It has built a system designed around one objective. 5 eras, 22 weapons. A country that began by copying a Soviet pistol and ended by building a hypersonic drone to guide hypersonic missiles onto aircraft carriers. The question every military strategist is now asking is not whether China has closed the gap. The question is how much is left, and whether the answer changes before it matters.